8 million people die annually due to excessive consumption of tobacco. And Zambia as a country is not spared from this particular challenge, as the disease burden has been significantly felt by the health sector. And today I'm privileged on the People's Space to host one of the pioneers of tobacco control advocacy in Zambia. And this is no other than Professor Fastone Goma. He is emanating from the Center for Primary Care Research. And of course, we'll be delving into tobacco advocacy control in Zambia. Professor, it's great to have you and welcome to the People's Space podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So let's kick it off from you being one of the pioneers, if not the only pioneer, of course, not to flatter you, but just tell us, outside this particular work, who is Professor Fastone Goma?
Thank you very much. Well, Professor Fastone Goma is basically a Zambian doctor, and very much with a lot of passion for heart health. I trained here at Ridgeway campus. I graduated, then went to the UK to specialize in heart diseases. I've been practicing from 1998. And then I went on to teach at the university. That's where my professorship comes from the University of Zambia, where I was teaching primarily about the heart. But my specialty has been physiology. So I'm a professor of physiology and cardiovascular health. So physiology is all about how the body performs and how the body functions. And obviously, I had to put cardiovascular health there to make sure that we are talking about the heart and its main job of keeping people alive. Thank you very much.
I know that obviously, physiology, as you described it, involves quite a lot because the human body is quite an intricate machine. But besides focusing and mastering the human body, what else makes Professor, what are your hobbies? What are you interested in apart from studying the science of the human body?
Thank you very much. Well, apart from that, obviously, I am a researcher, and that is why I'm found at the Center for Primary Care Research. We delve into trying to understand what is behind drivers of behaviors which destroy heart health, and that is why we are in this tobacco control area. I am a Christian. I go to Lusaga Baptist Church. I think that takes quite an amount of my time. And, I teach at that high level in the university. At church, I teach children. I'm a Sunday school teacher.
Wow.
I think that keeps me sane.
Interesting. That's an interesting dynamic, Professor. So just for the sake of interest, to our viewers, teaching students, obviously, who are of diverse ages, adults, teenagers, and then going to teach children. What differences have you noticed dealing with these different demographies?
It's very, very interesting. We must know that most of the adult behaviors are actually drafted into a child, into someone when they are still children. And so it's good to try and talk to them about their behaviors when they are adults. But you sit down and warn these little ones that if they don't change their ways, they may become like those. And it's very, very interesting. It actually gives you a good span of life. You understand life better that way. And you relate to human beings better that way. Because on one side, you talk to people who can reason with you. On the other side, you talk to people who want to believe you. And I think that's what makes life more complete.
Interesting, Professor. Interesting. On one side, talking to people that believe you, and on the other side, trying to convince people to believe you. What a dynamic balance of life. But anyway, let's get into what you do, as one of the pioneers of tobacco control advocacy in this country. What really inspired you? What triggered the passion to be able to take this route?
Well, I think when we started talking about tobacco, it was at a time when there was so much tobacco use going on in the world. Not only were people smoking, but people had really started snuffing, and the tobacco industry had picked up the science of making snuff, commercially. And so, while as in Zambia, we thought snuff was for old, archaic people, the West was taking it up as a habit which was supposed to be taken up by younger people. And a lot of people were dying because of tobacco use. And at that time, actually, it was estimated that if nothing is done, by 2020, we would have more than 10 million people dying per year. That was in the year 2000. And we said we cannot let this trend go on. Something must be done. And I think at that same time, we had one of our big politicians having a heart attack from using tobacco, And I mean, this person was known as a pipe smoker, and so they flew him to South Africa. He came back from there without his pipe, of course. We were very glad that at least he had stopped smoking. But then how many more were picking up the habit? And I think we were appalled to see the age at which Zambians were starting to smoke. Most of our countries were reporting that, people start smoking when they are 14, 15. In Zambia, we had people who started smoking when they were 7, 8, 9 years old. And that was scaring to us. We thought, well, guys, if we are going to have less people with heart disease in the future, we better start now. Prevention is better than cure. I think that is what kicked us into action. And so we did get to Ministry of Health to try and talk to the people in the unit that deals with behavior and mental health. And our guys there were saying, yeah, we have been talking about this. We have had struggles. But the only place where we seem to be talking tobacco is Chainama. And people don't want to come to Chainama. And so I thought, well, I think we have a problem here. Because Chainama is really a tertiary institution put there for people who are seriously addicted and people with serious mental health conditions. And that's not where we wanted tobacco control to be. Tobacco was a normal behavior, so to say, in Zambia, and people were smoking everywhere and anyhow. And so we thought, well, let's bring it into the open space. Let's find more and more ways in which we can talk about tobacco and educate our people about the harms of tobacco use. And I think that really spurred us on to action. And as we were talking, obviously the World Health Organization had also kicked into action at that time, trying to push countries to go full throttle into tobacco control. And so come 2008, Zambia actually signed up the treaty that World Health Organization had put out to the countries, the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. And soon after that, after signing that document, the Zambian government actually got very interested in getting it into implementation. And so we had, the Ministry of Local Government putting out the smoke-free law, the statutory instrument number 39 of 2008. And what that instrument said really was that people should not smoke in public, okay?
But yet we see them all the time.
Just imagine how many years after 2008 is this, and yet people are still smoking. That is why I think we are trying to say we need to up our game. We need to accelerate implementation of whatever is there for tobacco control. But I think of late, what we've been concentrating on was trying to bring about a more comprehensive law. And so I think that has been our path.
You spoke about something very interesting, Professor. You dealing with children who are an important part of our society and population as a whole. And people starting or research showing that people or kids are starting as early as 7 to smoking. What do you think would be the best intervention to be able to curtail what research has showed us in that respect?
Well, to a large extent, I think what is needed is to protect children from ever starting to smoke. But to help with that, we need to actually help the adults also who are struggling with tobacco use to also stop using their tobacco. And for the society as a whole to actually recognize the fact that tobacco is a poison, left alone, it kills. And we know that it kills more than 50% of its users. The only thing, the only product on earth that is so lethal that, of all the people who use it and who use it normally, okay, get destroyed by it. And so we need to work on both sides. But really, care for children is supposed to be our number one action.
They say children learn mainly by what they see, more than what you would tell them repeatedly, So do you think it would help if our people that are listening to us right now that may be hooked to tobacco would stop the habit of smoking in full view of the children or the minors?
Exactly. It's actually high time we started doing that. Those who smoke must know that their behavior is not a regular behavior. It must be done in private, so to say. If they want to smoke, can they smoke in some corner somewhere? Okay? And may they let the children know that this is one thing you should not get to start because it is not good. Okay? And obviously, when you look at the study that was done among young people, if you ask them, exactly who introduced them to tobacco use, they always tell you it was one of the adults. Others, some people, deliberately send children to go and buy mishanga for them. Okay? Just go, Pakonapa, get me one cigarette. Okay? One Peter Stuyvesant, no, get me a Pomo, get me this. And so the children go, they buy them the cigarette, then they see them puffing. They think, well, there seems to be something good that they are getting out of this cigarette. Next time, they try it for themselves. And before long, they get hooked onto tobacco use. And so really, children must not be exposed to tobacco in any form. And we are hoping that Zambia will go that way. Especially that we already have pieces of legislation which are out there. Okay? But as it is now, nobody seems to be taking this matter seriously. You have brought out your statistics there saying, more than 8 million die annually. That is the world over. Zambia has its figures as well. We are saying in Zambia, more than 7,000 die every year because of tobacco use. And this number keeps increasing every year because of the increase in the number of people who are using tobacco. And West is the fact that, it's not only those who actively smoke who are killed by tobacco, but even those who are just in the vicinity where people are smoking.
The passive smokers.
Passive smokers.
So being in a club, Professor, where shisha is being
you are
smoked
also
and whatever,
smoker.
I'm also at risk of being part of the 7,000 that are dying annually in Zambia due to tobacco.
Exactly. And those are not small figures, That's more people dying than malaria kills. More people dying than TB kills. More people dying, even for now, as there are less people dying of AIDS than dying of just tobacco use. But, because we don't relate those deaths directly with tobacco use, people continue to buy tobacco. People continue to use tobacco. And as you have said now, we have these new products coming in. Shisha, we have, the electronic cigarette, we have now the vaping gadgets, and obviously the Nsunguko is back. Especially young girls, they like, getting this Nsunguko, putting it, under their tongues. Some of them actually still sniff like their grandmothers used to do many years ago.
Obviously, the issue of Msunko is quite interesting to the majority of our viewers, and we will definitely get back to it. Right now, we will take a short break, and we'll be back and get more details onto what are some of the interventions to be able to address this gloomy picture that statistics that have been provided by Professor have actually painted when it comes to tobacco control in this country. Stay tuned.
When do you want it? Now! Atina Maya wali wansunko! Mali walele! Atina Maya wali wansunko! Mali walele! Na libomba manatata mungolole! Yeah! Na libomba manatata.
Welcome back to the People's Space podcast, and it is getting interesting and exciting. We are not just winning on the content side of things, but of course, we are also making sure that you, our committed and consistent viewers, get an opportunity to be able to win something as well. And when we talk about winning something, those of you that will be sharing multiple times consistently, and those of you that will get more likes on your shares, including those of you that will comment on all our platforms, YouTube, Facebook, under the handle The People's Space Podcast, you will stand an opportunity and a chance to be able to win yourself various prizes, including and not limited to mug cups, capes, shirts, and of course, other opportunities that are exciting and we will get to mention as we go with the episodes, especially in 2025, where it is getting excited. We now continue with our conversation looking at tobacco control. And of course, my guest is Professor Fastone Goma, coming all the way from the Center for Primary Care Research. Professor, I know that when we started our conversation, I did ask you just to describe yourself a little bit, but one of the things that I didn't get from you is on the social side of things. Do you watch some football, Professor? Are you a family man? If so, how many kids and all that?
Well, thank you very, very much. Well, I'm a husband of one wife.
Very important. One wife, eh?
Yes, and I have 3 children. And two boys and a lovely girl. Yeah, so the girl is actually a doctor.
Okay.
Yeah,
like,
just
like father, like daughter.
Exactly. She makes me proud. Yeah, the first one is an engineer, and the third one has followed the mother. He wants to be an accountant. So
interesting.
And he's doing pretty well.
So you've got an engineer in the family.
Yeah.
You've got somebody who can do numbers.
Yes.
And you've got 2 doctors.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you very much.
And, social life, football,
Yeah.
maybe golf, tennis.
Well, football. I used to play little football when I was at campus. And I'm a big follower of the great Green Buffaloes.
Interesting.
There are very few people who are like me, who are consistent at following some of these football teams. But Green Buffaloes Football Club have been my team many, many years. One thing, of course, is that when I was on campus, I was sponsored by the army.
Okay.
So I graduated as a military doctor, but I was then sent to the university, and I stayed at the university. I never went back. But my passion is still with the big team.
The Green Buffaloes.
GBFC. Yes,
the mighty
please.
GBFC.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, then when I got to UK, obviously I had to pick up some of those clubs there, but I never got away from the club that I picked before I went to the UK.
Okay.
Tottenham Hotspur.
Tottenham Hotspurs. Interesting.
Very interesting. We are never at the top, but we are never at the bottom.
Just there.
Exactly. When we win, we are happy. When we lose, we don't cry. Like you guys for Man U and Man City.
I knew that was going to go to that.
Don't do that. We are Tottenham.
Yeah.
Cool.
Professor, you mentioned something very interesting. I knew the Man United was going to get dragged in this conversation. But anyway, you mentioned something very interesting earlier on that, tobacco kills almost 50% of its users, something that requires, a little bit of, if not much of attention. And we'd just like to hear, tapping from your expertise as a person that does, cardio related issues. Can you just let us in a little bit on that? What is the impact of tobacco, especially on the heart?
Yeah, tobacco is one of those poisons which actually affects every part of the body. so to say. And, the World Health Organization has put out a picture which is called the smoker's body. If you just Google smoker's body, you will see what picture comes out, okay? But this is a picture which shows problems from the head to the toe, okay? The entire body gets destroyed by tobacco. In a short term, when you start smoking, okay, within 30 seconds of your pushing tobacco into your body, your heart starts racing, okay? And that's because the nicotine in the tobacco makes the nerves start overproducing, so to say. And so those ones overdrive the heart. So the heart starts pumping, your blood pressure starts going up, okay? That in itself, makes the wall of the heart get thicker, and it also causes an amount of damage to the blood vessels. Okay, these pipes which supply the heart itself with blood, they tend to get damaged. And with time, obviously, the chance of you starting to get coronary artery disease becomes very, very high. And with coronary artery disease, the next will be a heart attack. Tobacco also, makes the blood get a bit thicker. And when blood gets thicker, it becomes very, very prone to clotting. And if you get a blood clot going to your brain, then you get a stroke. On the heart itself, if the heart keeps pumping against this high pressure and the blood vessels are not very good at supplying, then you easily get into heart failure. So on the heart, actually, that's where you get the biggest impact of tobacco. But talking about, it affecting blood vessels, it affects blood vessels everywhere in the body. That is why most people end up with amputations, okay? Either they lose their leg or they lose their hand because one of the blood vessels there got blocked by a blood clot because of tobacco. Then even the skin, okay? The skin gets easily damaged by tobacco. And so skin age is always ahead of a person's age. You find that, someone looks like they are 70 when they're actually in their 40s, okay? And then you find, that most of them start having hair falling off and all those issues, that are to do with skin conditions. They get very, very common. Coming to the teeth, the tobacco smokers easily lose their teeth. Or their teeth, get a lot of tar on them because of the tar that is in the tobacco.
I've noticed that, the teeth become yellow and the eyes also change.
Exactly. Now, those changes are actually irreversible to a large extent. Though, we do say that once you stop smoking, a lot of things get better, but some things never get back to normal. So really, as I was saying, the whole body gets affected. So while most of these conditions are non-cancerous, we actually have more than 40 cancers which can occur in the body or because of tobacco use. Starting from the lungs themselves, which get the highest dose of tobacco, you get throat cancers, you get mouth cancers. But for the women especially, breast cancer is more common in those who use tobacco. Okay? Cancer of the cervix, which is so common in women. Again, we get higher numbers because of tobacco use. And we have, in the men, the cancer of the prostate. It also can get, accelerated by tobacco use. And then there are some funny cancers like cancer of the pancreas, the thing that the organ that, produces insulin to make sure you don't have sugar disease, okay? That organ also gets damaged by tobacco. Ordinarily, you may get sugar disease because it's not producing enough insulin. But at the worst, you get cancer of the pancreas, or because of tobacco use. Those organs which are so far away from tobacco smoke, but products from tobacco do get there and cause, devastation, so to say.
Now, obviously, you've talked about the cancers that are related to the issue of tobacco. Let us now talk about the issue of hypertension. It's one of the diseases or conditions that I've noticed has become prominent in both the older and the young people. How related is this to excessive use of tobacco?
Well, thank you very, very much. I mean, talking about hypertension, that's one of my biggest passions, so to say. And I think for now, we are all getting very, very worried with the way hypertension in Zambia is coming up, okay? Every year we see more and more people having high blood pressure. We see more and more people dying of stroke because of high blood pressure. And what is worrying us now is the age of the people who are getting stroke because of high blood pressure. Last week, I think we had a 26-year-old who got a stroke because of high blood pressure. We never used to see that before, That we used to leave stroke for the 60, 70-year-olds, But it's really getting bad, okay? Now, the problem I think that we have, obviously being blacks, and being in Zambia, is that our blood pressures are always on the higher side. Okay?
Why is that?
Well, it seems to be just a race thing. Okay? That if you are black, you are bound to have hypertension. And then we pass it on. Okay? So if your mom or your father is hypertensive, then you are on your way to getting hypertension as well. So what we tend to worry about are these triggers which make it come out earlier, okay? You will find that, if your mom and dad have hypertension, ordinarily, it will show when you're in your 50s. But if you put on too much weight, if you smoke, the hypertension may come in your 30s, okay? Because something pushes the body to make the blood vessels a bit tighter, and then the heart beats, as I said, with stronger force, okay? Just to keep the blood going. Yes. And so you get a high blood pressure. So, as I said, tobacco makes you to have your blood pressure going up within seconds of starting to smoke. And so you can imagine if you are in a pub where everyone is smoking and they are smoking the whole evening, it means the whole evening your pressure will be very, very high, okay? And then obviously, when the tobacco gets into the body, it does get broken down and most of it comes out in urine, okay? But that excretion from the body can take up to 48 hours, okay? So while as, getting in, it gets in seconds, it gets out of the body very, very slowly. That is why we don't really want people to be exposed to tobacco smoke at all. If anything, we would want people to just breathe in clean air. Yes, let air just be there to take oxygen in and bring out carbon dioxide and those other byproducts.
Let's now focus, Professor, on some of the interventions at country level. And obviously, when we look back at 2024, would obviously like to know the performance of our country on the Global Tobacco Industry Interference Index.
Yeah, I hope you have had a look at tobacco industry index. You will find that, I think in the last two episodes where we have had these countries featuring, Zambia has featured very, very poorly, okay? In the first one, Zambia had the worst index, okay? Meaning that in Zambia, the tobacco industry is free to do anything they want to do, okay? And that is a very, very bad showing. Zambians are very, very well-informed people. And we have a lot of educated people, meaning that we are supposed to know how to deal with industry. Industry which is here to bring us good health, we need to promote. But industry which is here to produce poisons for our people, we ought to control. Okay? And that is what Zambia is not doing. That is what the tobacco industry interference index is saying. That Zambia is not controlling the tobacco industry at all, and so it's free to do whatever they want to do. Now, what is it that the tobacco industry does? One is that they want to promote sales of their tobacco. Okay? So they do everything to make sure that we are promoting sales of tobacco. We are making, young people, especially children, to get interested in picking up the habit of smoking. And we want to make sure that those who are smoking more. Okay, that's what the tobacco industry does to try and promote its products. In Zambia, they are doing all those things uncontrollably. And that is not good.
Professor, obviously, due to the interest of time, would also like to find out what your thoughts are with regards government's delay to enact one of the critical pieces of legislation, which is the Tobacco Control Bill.
Yeah, so as I was saying, that for us to have a healthy population, we ought to declare certain products as poisonous. Not only to declare, but to make our people know that these products are poisonous, and then everything must be done to protect those people from exposure to that poison. And this is where the Tobacco Control Bill comes in. The Tobacco Control Bill is supposed to be one bill which puts together measures that control how much of this poison gets going out to our people day by day. And in that bill, 6 things have been proposed, okay, which are all aimed at us helping our people keep healthy, okay? The first thing I think that the bill does is just to say, please, can the Ministry of Health keep an eye on how many people are using tobacco? We ought to make sure that this number keeps decreasing per time. Okay? The second thing I think that...
Is there political will, in your opinion? The bill is there, obviously, as you are explaining, but would you say, are you satisfied with the current administration's resolve to be able to enact this bill? Do you think there is sufficient political will?
Well, when it comes to political will, I would say yes. There's actually adequate political will to get this bill enacted. We have interacted with members of parliament, okay? And all of them actually are well aware of the harms that tobacco brings to a nation. And there's a lot of support among them. The problem we have is the problem of getting this bill to parliament for their parliamentary debate. It has never gotten to parliament, okay? Why? Because the tobacco industry makes sure that there's a block at the level of cabinet. It never passes cabinet. And I think this is where we are hoping that you people will help us get this message across, that can we please make sure that our cabinet officials facilitate the passage of this bill. Because, nobody is against it. But every time it gets close to getting to cabinet, something happens. And we know that most of what is happening is actually instigated by the tobacco industry.
Parliament is resuming today, and you've obviously highlighted your expectation. But yet again, the Tobacco Control Bill is not on the agenda. So
just imagine.
Are we making any progress?
We are not happy at all. We are not happy. And we hope that something can still be done. Okay? Now, this bill has been for internal legislation before, meaning that Ministry of Health has a draft and it almost got it to Parliament. Okay? And so the omission of it being on this sittings bill agenda, to us is just a small setback, but we hope that the Ministry of Health can pick it up, okay? Because we ought to have this bill go to where policymakers are. Policymakers are in Parliament, okay? Yeah, They are not at justice where the bills are drafted, okay? And cabinet is just a stepping stone, so to say. But I'm sure you heard that our president already gave a go-ahead for this bill to go, okay? It went as far as that, where the chairman of cabinet said, in principle, this bill is approved. Can we get it now to the House so that members of parliament can debate? But the tobacco industry makes sure that it doesn't pass through Ministry of Justice, doesn't pass through Ministry of Health. And every time they will be using, Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Agriculture. But even there, you find that it's not really the politicians that they are using. It's just some technocrats, okay, who come in with some arguments which we fail to appreciate those arguments. But I think what we are saying is that while as, this interference is going on and the bill is not going to Parliament, our people keep dying. You remember the figure I told you, and I said it keeps increasing every year. And so as we are talking, this bill should have been passed in 2010. It's 2014 now.
As we get to conclude,
it's now
Professor,
2025. Okay.
As we get to conclude, Professor, before my directors kill me, your organization obviously works sternly to be able to advocate, to promote advocacy with regards tobacco-related issues. What strategies should we expect briefly from you to embark on to be able to change this supposed inertia that you've mentioned with regards to the tobacco control bill?
Well, I think for now we are trying to accelerate our collaboration with other organizations to try and get our voices heard. But at the same time, we are actually trying to get direct access to the people who matter. So we are lining up appointments with the ministries, okay, which are most crucial to this thing going forward. So we will be talking to Minister of Health, Minister of Justice. Now, the Minister of Justice, okay, has always been on our side when it comes to tobacco control. She was, vice chairperson for Parliamentarians Forum against tobacco, okay? When Dr. Kalina was chairperson. And now we have Honorable Kambita as chairperson, with Honorable Brenda Nyirenda as vice chairperson of the Parliamentary Forum for Tobacco Control. So we have all these people who know a lot about tobacco control, and they are ready to support the bill. We are lining them up so that we can talk to them at a personal level. And so we hope before this legislative sitting comes to an end, we can see the bill get into Parliament, get debated. For the debate, I think we have no doubt that we will have very educated debate coming from there, because I think members of Parliament are well aware of what tobacco does and why it must be considered a poison.
Let us close with this, Professor. Obviously, your organization, in collaboration with the Center for Trade Policy and Development, including the Master Chimbala Foundation, did conduct a tiny targets study. Give us a snippet of the findings.
Oh, well, tiny targets. I wish we talked about it when I was talking about my passion for children.
Well, no, we can still bring you back. Yeah, but just give us a snippet as we close. I think it's also important that people that will have an opportunity to watch this particular episode get a snippet of what that is about.
Now, we have always complained about how the industry catechizes children, how it gets children to pick up the smoking habit, okay? And I think we said that it must be P1 when it comes to protection. We need to protect the children. But the tobacco industry, as big as it is, deliberately targets these small ones. That is why this project goes tiny targets, okay? Yeah, small fellas. How do they do that? Usually, they make sure that they have their tobacco sold near schools, okay? so that as children walk out of that school to go and buy a sweetie, they can see the cigarette and if anything, buy a cigarette, okay? And so in our study, we were trying to say, where are people selling their cigarettes in Zambia? And here we took Lusaka, the whole of Lusaka, and Chongwe, looking at a very urban area and also at a rural area, trying to see. We actually found that both in urban and rural areas, there are a lot of people who are selling cigarettes within 100 meters of schools, okay? And they deliberately put their packets outside so that children see the different brands of cigarettes are sold. And then they are selling them as mishanga. One mshanga now, I think there's a type of mshanga which is going for 50 kwacha, which means you give them 1 kwacha to go and buy a sweetie. From that 1 kwacha, they can actually buy 2 mishanga. Okay? And that to us is something that is fueling tobacco use among children. Because we have heard now that 14% of children under 15 are using tobacco. 14%. That's a very, very high figure. Okay? And even that is just the people who are smoking, who are using tobacco now. But if you ask that group of children, how many of you have ever tried smoking? That figure goes up to 25%. And that's for both girls and boys, which is really a disaster. Because we were saying that, as a nation, we ought to work in such a way that no child under 10 picks up the habit of smoking. If we can achieve that, in many years from now, we'll actually have adults who have never smoked, who don't even desire to smoke. That will be a very, very strong tobacco control tactic that we can use to keep our nations healthy.
Thank you very much, Professor Fastone Goma, for coming through.
You're welcome. I hope I'll be here again soon.
Definitely, Professor. We will bring you back. So that has been my guest, Professor Fastone Goma, all the way from the Center for Primary Care Research, talking about tobacco control in Zambia. And of course, we've learned quite so much with regard to some of the interventions that must be employed immediately to be able to curtail the health burden that excessive use of tobacco is exerting on the important social sector called health in this particular country, which is, of course, is straining the national budget as well. But as we get to wrap up, allow me to remind you that you can stand a chance to be able to win yourself some of the fantastic and amazing prizes that we have here at the People's Space podcast, which include some caps, shirts, and also other important accessories that may be significant memorabilia that you can have for yourself and, of course, your significant others. And all you do to be able to access or win some of these prizes is simply share the People's Space podcast, which does broadcast on our YouTube page under the handle The People's Space, and on the Facebook platform as well, which is the Center for Trade Policy and Development. As many shares as you can get, and we'll be able to see which one has more likes. And from there, we will be able to select a winner, and you can stand yourself a chance to be able to win some of these prizes. And most importantly, remember to click that subscription button and that like button, both on our YouTube and Facebook page. The name is Wenson Mavor. Thank you for watching. See you next time for another interesting episode.